All right, so you said you wanted to turn the tables. You wanted to use some of those journalism classes that you're taking. All right.
All right, so now
we'll turn it around.
Now, friends, as we sit here in the birthplace of Catholic radio, we get to interview Teresa Tomeo. So I'm going to ask you, Teresa, over your years working in Catholic radio now, what has been one of your favorite interviews? Something that comes to mind that, because I'm sure you felt the Holy Spirit moving in interviews before. So has there been one that sticks out?
Gosh, I can't say that there's been one because every single day I get the opportunity to interview so many amazing people. But I think I have to say my favorite interviews are actually interviews like this, where people who are going out in the everyday life and making a difference, making a commitment to Christ. I mean, I'm so glad to see Beth again. Beth and I became friends through a pilgrimage we did together to Israel. And then I found out, I didn't know that she was working with the St. Paul Street Evangelization. And Steve Dawson told me that when we were working on setting up some interviews for the Catholic View for Women. And he told me, well, I said, I'd like a woman, because I'd like to see a woman out there evangelizing on the street. And so he said, well, there's this really cool lady named Beth. And I'm like, I know Beth. So I think
everybody knows Beth.
Interviews like that with the real people. When I was a TV reporter, I would have to say one of the most powerful stories I ever covered was, well, two stories. One was it was a horrible situation, but a father turned it into a Romans 8:28 situation.
Wow.
There was a story of a young girl and her friends who were driving home from a football game. They were doing nothing wrong. They all had their seatbelts on, and they were hit by a drunk driver who ran a stop sign. And she was killed. I think one or two other people in the car were killed. And he turned it around and really took it and began to get very involved in Mothers Against Drunk Driving. And he had a very strong faith. And then there were people that I interviewed after tragedies and in bad neighborhoods who just would not let the situation get them down. And so to me, I've interviewed a lot of famous people. I've interviewed senators. I've interviewed actors. I've interviewed, royalty at various occasions. I've been at amazing events. Loved covering John Paul II, all the events I've done in Rome. But the bottom line is meeting the real people and the people who are just taking the everyday situation and witnessing.